If you've watched this channel for any length of time at this point, you will know that I love movies. I've loved them ever since I was a kid, but as I grew up, I became more and more passionate about movies and the art of filmmaking. I even went to school for film and made some films of my own. They are not just entertainment for me. For me, films are life itself. They can help us understand ourselves and the world around us. They can create emotions and even inspire us to examine our own. I really enjoy watching movies and seeing what I can learn about the world around me and about myself through them. And so today I thought I would share with you my top 15 favorite films of all time. Now, I have already done a video like this in 2022, however, my list has changed a lot since then, although there will be some overlap. I've also chosen not to include any films in this list that belong to a series or franchise. A couple of these films are getting sequels in the future, but as of recording this video, each film in this list is a standalone movie. So that's the main reason that I'm not going to be mentioning The Lord of the Rings at all in this video. That would be in a future video. I may also do a video in the future on my top franchises of all time. If you want to see that, let me know in the comments below. In this list, you will see films that I have talked about before on this channel, as well as entries that I may talk about at some point in the future. But for now, here is my top 15 favorite films of all time. Currently. Beginning at number 15 with the 2019 film, Joker. My favorite kind of film is a character study. A character study is a film that follows the development and the emotions of a singular character throughout the whole film. I love exploring elements of psychology, philosophy, and morality all through the lens of one character, and the Joker is certainly that. Its visuals, its scores, and its performances were all magnificent. I am also just a huge fan of Joaquin Phoenix, and he will appear more than once on this list. And this film has certainly gotten a bad rap, both from people who see empathizing with a killer as problematic, and from people who think that the Joker is literally me for real. But I really do feel like both sides are missing the point. Because at the beginning of the film, we are meant to sympathize with the character of Arthur Fleck. The point of the movie comes from where does that empathy stop? And this in itself was a very interesting exercise for me. One of the inciting incidences of the film is when he is attacked in a subway by a couple of Wall Street guys. And in the ensuing conflict, he shoots two of his attackers in self-defense. Now, of course, murder is murder, but these two deaths are at least somewhat understandable. He remains an empathetic figure because he was attacking these two out of self-defense. In my opinion, the moment that he stops being an empathetic figure is immediately afterwards, where he hunts the third person down and shoots and kills him in cold blood. The other two could very well be argued as self-defense, but this is murder. And so my enjoyment from the film, aside from the wonderful visuals, score, and performances, is in understanding where the empathy that I experience for the character should stop. And that was the moment for me. This is an enjoyable and very well done film, and its protagonist is certainly not worthy of admiration.
You can say that again, pal.
And now on to number 14 with Shin Godzilla. Now, of course, I have talked about this film at length on the channel. It is my most viewed video. As of recording this video, that video is sitting at 166,000 views, which is insane. I love this film's take on Godzilla, both in terms of its design and the hidden story that lurks beneath the actual story. It is a fantastic movie with so many complex layers beneath the surface, and I would highly recommend you watch the movie for yourself, as well as watch my video on it. I can already tell with this video I'm going to be putting a lot of annotations in the corner with links to the other videos talking about these in more depth. And number 13 on this list goes to Shutter Island. This is the first of 3 movies by Martin Scorsese that will appear on this list. It's a fantastic mystery thriller with a twist that you may not expect and an open ending that I found extremely satisfying. The performances are equally fantastic with plenty of emotion. It is a film that makes you question everything, even when you have all of the answers. It is paranoia personified, which is equal parts dreadful and interesting. In an age of plots that cater to audience expectations, a genuine mystery is very gratifying to watch and experience. This is one of those films that I wish that I could rewatch for the first time.
Where are the kids?
And now on to number 12 on this list, Apocalypse Now. If the last entry in this list was paranoia personified, then this film personifies madness. Just utter madness. Taking place during the Vietnam War, this is, to me, the definitive anti-war film. And the progression throughout the film is fantastic, as the layers of this movie are slowly stripped away until we get to the heart of the message of the movie. At the beginning of the film, the protagonist is surrounded by patriots and people who laugh and joke, but all the while they are massacring Vietnamese forces.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
But as the crew travels deeper and deeper into the jungle, the layers of politics and morality are slowly stripped away.
Who's the commanding officer here?
Ain't you?
And at the end of the road, we find the antagonist of the story, a rogue colonel who has gone mad and is revered as a god by the people around him. This colonel is played by Marlon Brando, who in my opinion may have been the greatest actor who ever lived. And his performance as a psychotic warlord is utterly haunting.
I cried, I wept like some grandmother.
Colonel Kurtz is probably my favorite villain of all time. This movie is as insane and as senseless as all wars are, making it the definitive anti-war film in my opinion.
Horror. Horror.
And next on the list is number 11, The Seventh Seal. Directed by the legendary Ingmar Bergman, this is a very philosophical and existential film. Set during the time of the Black Death, a knight returns home and is confronted by the very personification of death himself.
Vem är du?
Jag är döden.
Kommer du för att hämta mig?
Jag har redan länge gått vid din sida.
And throughout the film, the knight and this cloaked figure play a game of chess, battling for the knight's very soul. And all around the knight, disease and death surround him. This film ponders the nature of life, death, and life after death. It asks all of these questions, but the conclusion of the film was never in doubt. Healthy or sick, rich or poor, none of us can escape death. We can all question the point of existence and why cruelty and death persist, but in the end, we must all confront the inevitable. Speaking of somber contemplation, we come to number 10 on the list, Silence. This is the second Scorsese film on this list, but it is entirely different from Shutter Island. This is the contemplation of existence and suffering that we see in The Seventh Seal, but with a strong religious twist. And if you're a Christian like I am, I highly recommend watching this film at least once. It is a fantastic story about staying faithful to God even when confronted with suffering and death on a mass scale. And it asks challenging questions like, how are we supposed to be faithful to God even when he is silent? The protagonist, played by Andrew Garfield, struggles with this very idea. He struggles with the fact that God remains silent even through the suffering and death that surround him, only to learn at the very end that God was there in that silence the entire time. This film for me is a great place to meditate and reflect on my own faith. And in that meditation and reflection is where I hear God's voice.
Come ahead now. It's all right.
And number 9 on our list goes to Wings of Desire. This is a phenomenal surrealist film that handles very existential questions. I really did just decide to lump all the existential films at the midway point in this list. And I've talked about this film on my channel and my love for its unique ideas and cinematography. And it also has one of my favorite on-screen romances of all time between an angel who wishes he were a man and a woman who wishes that she could fly. And together they create such a complete union, with the two pieces becoming one, at least emotionally. It is also a love letter to a broken and divided Germany, as the Berlin Wall had not been torn down at the time this was filmed. I go into greater detail, of course, in the video I made on Wings of Desire. It is a very unique comfort movie for me.
Sie hat mich heimgeholt. Und ich habe heimgefunden.
And speaking of comfort movies, number 8 on my list goes to The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. This is a very sweet and endearing story about the power of imagination. Walter Mitty lives in his imagination to escape the monotony of his life, but it is also his imagination that allows him to step out of his comfort zone and into a life that is even better than the one in his imagination. It also has my absolute favorite portrayal of romance on screen ever in cinema. And that's because it's not dramatic or romanticized. It's simple and it's very wholesome. It's the beginning of a very sweet and realistic relationship. I can't really describe it, but there's something about this movie that's just extremely sweet and comforting to me.
If I like a moment, I don't like to have the distraction of the camera.
And number 7 on our list goes to a film that is neither of those things, and that is No Country for Old Men. Based on the novel by Cormac McCarthy, this Western is a powerful tale about the myth of the hero. It also has a fearsome villain in Anton Chigurh, who is certainly in my list of top villains of all time.
Howdy. What's this about?
Step out of the car, please, sir.
What is that?
I need you to step out of the car, sir.
McCarthy's villains tend to embody the chaos and the evils of the world, and Anton Chigurh is no exception. He is malevolent chaos personified. He is a reminder to the characters in this film that they are only human, and the forces that are represented in Anton Chigurh are not.
We need to know what we're calling it for here.
You need to call it. I can't call it for you. It wouldn't be fair.
And sometimes chaos wins. Sometimes the elderly continue to live while the young die. This film is a great reminder that nothing is certain in life.
And in the dream, I knew that he was going on ahead. He's fixing to make a fire somewhere out there and all that dark and all that cold. And then I woke up.
We then come to number 6 on my list, Gladiator. I love historical tragedies, and Gladiator is my absolute favorite historical tragedy. Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix deliver amazing performances, the score is phenomenal, and the story as a whole is really well done. It is such a tragic story, both at the beginning and at the end. Some films are perfect because of the writing, and some films are perfect because of their execution. But Gladiator is perfect because of both. We are now entering the territory of my favorite films that I will rewatch regularly, and Gladiator is certainly one of those. It also goes into my ever-growing list of my favorite movies of all time that did not need a sequel. Why?
And I will have my vengeance in this life or the next.
And now we are officially also moving into my top 5 favorite films of all time, beginning with number 5, The Grand Budapest Hotel. Wes Anderson has a style that is uniquely his own, and this film embodies everything about that I love. He and his cast all create this magical world of whimsy, comedy, and mystery. And it's a really unique story because the point of the story is the telling of the story. This story represents a world of magic and wonder that sadly no longer exists. And in hearing that story and in watching that film, maybe the magic can live on in us. And I fell in love with this world when I first watched this film. Its austere presentation is perfectly balanced with its blunt comedy. This is another comfort movie that I would highly recommend.
I go to bed with all my friends.
And number 4 on my list goes to The Irishman. This is my third and final Scorsese movie on this list. And of course, this is a film that I just covered on this channel. The video was 2 hours long and took a month to make. In other words, I had a lot to say about it. That's just how much there is to unpack in this film. It is, at least in my mind, cinema's definitive American tragedy. It's a story of friendship and betrayal set across the backdrop of 20th century America. It is the admittedly unreliable account of a mafia enforcer and his involvement in the shaping of American history. And for me, this is Scorsese's greatest film, as well as the greatest mafia movie ever made.
I heard you paint houses.
Yes, sir, I do, and I also do my own carpentry.
And in my top 3 favorite movies, number 3 goes to The Lighthouse. I really don't know how to explain it, but Robert Eggers' films, all of them, feel so dramatically different from any other films I have ever seen. And to me, The Lighthouse is his crowning achievement. At least so far. He's only made 3 movies, and he's making a 4th, which I'm very excited for. The cinematography and the writing make it feel like I am watching a movie straight out of cinema history, in the best way possible. When I first decided on this new pursuit of content, on making videos sharing stories and the movies that I love and explaining the deeper meanings behind some of them, The Lighthouse was the very first movie that came to mind that I really wanted to talk about. There is not only a deeper story to this film, but there is a mythology that is woven throughout all of the events of the film, all of which I talk about at length in my video. I'm pointing towards the annotation that I'm assuming is there. And when you're watching that video, pardon my public speaking skills and the fact that everything looks orange. It takes a long time to get comfortable talking to a camera, and I've learned a lot about color grading since that first video. Because that was also the first video that I filmed for my channel using this camera.
Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow!
And at number 2, we have the film Oppenheimer. I think I have well established at this point in the channel that I loved Oppenheimer. I have a video on this channel where I talk for nearly an hour and a half on why I think this film is a technical marvel and also the greatest film ever made in the 21st century. It is a massive story with repercussions that impacted the world that we live in to this day. It also has mythical and cultural implications that I talk about at length in that video, along with many, many other things. I also pronounced the name of the composer Ludwig Göransson, but I realized in interviews after that he pronounces it Ludwig Göransson. So I'm not sure if that's right or if he's just saying it that way for everyone who speaks English, but I looked up how to pronounce that name with the accent on it, and Göransson was the decision that I came to. There is so much that I love about this movie, and if you have 3 hours in a day that are free, I highly recommend you watch this movie for yourself. And then watch my video about it, and like the video, and subscribe from the video. Subscribe from this video, actually, and like this video too.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Now, this is my favorite film of the 21st century, but it is only number 2 on my list. And that's because my favorite film of all time and number 1 in this list is a little bit older than that. And so the number 1 slot and my favorite film of all time goes to Ingmar Bergman's film Wild Strawberries. As I said at the beginning of this list, my favorite kind of film of all time is a character study, and for me, this is my favorite character study. It is the story of an old man filled with regrets and his journey of reconciling with his family, but also with himself. His past and his present all collide at once in order to give this old man hope again. It really is both a heartfelt and healing story with many visual tricks that just make it so interesting. And it is full of symbolism that you can unpack. I also have a video on Wild Strawberries, although I had to absolutely cannibalize it for YouTube copyright. I tried several times to get a version of this video that was monetizable, but in the end, after days of trying, I just had to post it. But I do still think Wild Strawberries is a phenomenal film that you can actually watch on YouTube for free. This film, to me, is the greatest film ever made. Just watching it all the way through feels like free therapy. And Lord knows I need that.
Han bryr sig inte om någonting. Han är alldeles kall.
And with that, these are my top 15 favorite films of all time. We have films of all kinds from many different genres, but each of them contains something that I absolutely love about cinema. You can probably tell a lot about a person by their top 15 favorite movies, so I'll leave it up to you in the comments to judge me based on my top 15. Let me know what my top 15 films says about me in the comments below. But with that, thank you so much for watching. This video was a lot shorter than the last one, and I hope that you enjoyed that. After the month-long process of getting that video done, I wanted to make another video that was a lot shorter, something that I could do reasonably in like a couple weeks. I just really needed a break from the hour-plus long, 2-hour-plus long videos. And of course, a huge thank you goes out to my patrons, Sean, Happy the Knife, and my top tier patrons, RD and Snowy. Thank you all so much for supporting me and the content and my dream of doing this for you all full time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for another great video. I hope that you're excited for it because I know that I am. And cut.